Hello, this is John Miares from the USDA NASS Great Lakes Regional Field Office in East Lansing, Michigan. This slideshow is the first of a series intended to introduce NASDA enumerators to the ARMS Phase 2 survey, which is a production practices report for soybeans. This survey is to be conducted in the fall of 2020. Please note that these slideshows are intended to provide basic guidance on the survey and provide supplemental information to enumerators about the survey and its ins and outs. They are not going to cover every possible scenario you will encounter when working with the farmers. Additionally, these presentations cannot replace independent studying of the manual, working with supervisors, participating in any training or mini schools, and going through practice exercises.
What is ARMS? ARMS stands for the Agricultural Resource Management Survey. It is a project conducted in cooperation with USDA's Economic Research Service and serves as the primary source of information for agricultural resource use, costs, and farm finance. The survey supports key uses of enterprise, farm, and household data that correspond with mandated activities required by the U.S. Congress. In reality, the ARMS survey is the only source of information available for objective evaluations of critical issues related to agriculture and the rural economy. USDA is required by law to publish commodity cost and return estimates and to report to Congress on the state of the family farm on an annual basis. The data used to create these reports come from the ARMS survey, which has been part of a long historic series rigorously developed, used widely for research, and are widely accessed. The beginnings of the cost and return data series goes back to the 1973 Farm Bill, also known as the Agricultural and Consumer Protection Act of 1973. This mandate specifies which commodities to include, which costs to compute, and that the estimates shall be updated annually. Mandated reporting of these data are part of the permanent Farm Bill legislation, which is rolled over into successive Farm Bills unless otherwise changed.
Across the country, there are 9 crop and 3 livestock commodities that are analyzed on a rotating basis, and these provide the baseline data for setting cost and return estimates that are mandated by Congress. Secondary data, mainly collected by NASS, provide the information about annual price, acreage, and production changes in order to set the estimates between surveys. In the Great Lakes region, the primary crops which are studied on a rotating basis include soybeans, corn, winter wheat, oats, and potatoes. Additionally, as part of the NASS Chemical Use Program, we conduct surveys of chemical use on fruits and vegetables in alternating years. In 2019, we conducted the Fruit Chemical Use Survey in Michigan. In 2020, we will be conducting the Vegetable Chemical Use Survey in all 3 states of our region. The ARMS is conducted in 3 phases. During Phase 1, conducted primarily between May and July, we identify operations that are actively farming, multiple operating arrangements, and operations that have the targeted commodities for Phase 2 and Phase 3. We will also ask questions about the farm in general, including acres owned and operated, acres of cropland, type of farm, and the gross value sales. With this data, we can screen respondents for subsequent phases based on whether they have the commodities of interest. In Phase 2, conducted in the fall, we focus on chemical use and other production practices for the target commodities. In Phase 3, conducted in the winter, we collect data to examine farm sector financial conditions, including income, expenditures, assets, and debt for the farm business and the farm household. It typically includes the entire ARMS 2 sample and a general sample of operations screened in from Phase 1.
There are typically 2 different versions of the ARMS Phase 2 survey conducted in a given year. There is the Production Practices Report, which sometimes we call the short form, and the Production Practices and Cost Report, which sometimes we call the long form. Both forms allow us to collect real data on pesticide use. We ask about crops treated, acreage treated, rates, and the number of treatments and any alternatives used. In addition to providing real data on pesticide use on field crops, the ARMS 2 survey provides the ability to conduct economic and environmental analyses relating to crop production practices and integrated pest management practices and their adoption levels. Many farmers are interested in conservation to sustain their own land base and more broadly to sustain U.S. agriculture. But the public also benefits from reducing the environmental costs of agriculture when it comes to water and air quality, wildlife habitats, and human health. In recent years, USDA has been spending roughly $6 billion per year on conservation programs. ARMS provides the data to understand the adoption of practices such as conservation tillage, crop rotation, cover crop usage, and nitrogen management that can reduce agriculture's environmental footprint and evaluate how conservation policies can be targeted to that end. USDA is now heavily focused on the concept of soil health and has been working towards a research program that focuses on practices that are believed to be important in building soil health. So what else is special about ARMS 2? ARMS is the only survey that ties field-level production practices to production of financial outcomes for both the commodity enterprise and the whole farm. There are links to production outcomes and marketing decisions. There are links to farm-level production decisions and practices. The survey tracks commodity costs and returns, whole farm income statements and balance sheets. The outcomes are tied to program participation and policies. Perhaps most importantly, the survey is designed to be representative, comprehensive, and objective. Many university and private surveys are based on panels of selected participants and are not representative of U.S. agriculture. The need for knowing more about agricultural chemical usage really began in the 1980s when rising concern about pesticide and plant nutrient levels in well water spurred Congress to fund an initiative to enhance water quality, but data needed for assessing the scope of these issues was scarce. The Water Quality Initiative, also known as WQI, mandated the development of a comprehensive database describing the nature of agricultural chemical use in the United States. To fulfill this mandate, NASS and ERS were given the responsibility to develop USDA's pesticide data program. Starting in 1990, NASS began collecting agricultural fertilizer and pesticide use data for major field crops in selected fruit, vegetables, melons, and strawberries. This data has been used to build a database for the USDA's Pesticide Data Program, or PDP. The PDP is used by USDA to evaluate the safety of the nation's food supply. Keep in mind, there are over 21,000 pesticide products on the market. There are over 500 chemical compounds which make up the active ingredients to these pesticides. The EPA has approved 350 of these compounds for food uses, the rest for non-food uses such as disinfectants, termite control, and rodent control. In 1996, the Food Quality Protection Act was passed, which required EPA to conduct reviews of tolerance levels for re-registration of pesticide products. Growers benefit from ARMS 2 because it gives EPA accurate and timely information on actual chemical usage to use in their decision-making process for product registration, re-registration, and product alternatives. If data were not available, EPA would assume maximum label rates were being applied on all crop acreage, overcounting the true amount of pesticides being used to produce field crops. The result could be the cancellation of product registrations for chemicals farmers rely on. In many cases, growers often have no alternatives to these chemicals. So, although the EPA is the main user of the ARMS Phase 2 data, growers have a vested interest in the risk analyses that are conducted based on the ARMS 2 data because many pesticides they rely on are classified as minor use, and there could be serious consequences if re-registration of certain pesticides are not allowed. ARMS data can be used to show the impact of cancellation of the pesticides to both farmers and consumers. At the end of the day, only growers can provide this information, and generally, what we see is that they show that they are good stewards of the land. With the ARMS 2 data over the years, we have seen changes in labeling and usage of various chemicals. We've seen increased re-entry or pre-harvest intervals for farmer safety. We've changed in protective equipment requirements, and even the reduced use rate and the number of sprays for certain chemicals. Who else uses this information? ARMS data are widely used in reporting on U.S. agriculture by agricultural media and in national publications. Farmers see ARMS information through contact with extension advisors, in reports issued by universities and state colleges, in farm magazines, newspapers, and on radio or TV spots. Most respondents do not even realize the data is coming from the survey, but many of the findings from the results of the ARMS reports, different charts of note, webinars, and web data were picked up and distributed by national and agricultural media. Through these channels, farmers tell their story to the broader public, the 97% of the population that isn't involved in day-to-day agriculture. ARMS data also support private decision making. Input providers such as chemical, equipment, seed dealers use the data from the survey to help make production, inventory, and distribution plans for their products, and to track fundamental changes in technology and input use to better meet farmers' changing demands. They can answer questions such as, how should we plan production and inventory? How much value will farmers see in a new product? Data are used by farmers primarily through information provided by extension advisors and private crop consultants who help them determine what to produce, how much, and any evidence on the value of new technology and practices. Farm organizations and commodity groups can also access summaries of the data on the ERS website, as well as ERS reports using the data, and they can use findings from those sources in policy advocacy for their members. One of the most important users of the ARMS data are policymakers. Policymakers include USDA leaders, program managers, congressional leaders, and staff. Congress and USDA support ARMS in the federal budget because it provides information they use to evaluate the performance of farm businesses and to make policy decisions affecting agriculture. ERS use the data to provide analyses and reports for these policymakers. For example, with the 2014 Farm Bill, we saw the elimination of commodity price support programs and the expansion of crop insurance programs. ARMS helps to measure how production decisions have changed and what financial impacts of those decisions have been. It helps to answer key questions such as, what is the financial performance of the farming sector? What's driving changes in the financial performance? How is policy affecting this? Ultimately, policy decisions will be made with or without ARMS. Some policymakers do have farm backgrounds, but most of them don't, and those that do cannot just rely on their personal background or experience. They're all too busy, so they rely on others for that information. ARMS provides that accurate data on U.S. agriculture, and with better information, policymakers can make better decisions. So I've talked a bit about who uses the ARMS data, but what good is this to the farmer? This can be challenging to explain because farmers may not see the benefits directly, but rather indirectly because the people who use this information do have impacts on how farmers do their business, like extension advisors, like the media, farm organizations, commodity groups, agribusinesses, Congress, and USDA. So why should the farmer respond? Well, there are several important benefits gained from responding to the survey. Growers have a chance to tell how they use chemicals responsibly to maintain a safe and abundant food supply. The survey results also are official USDA estimates and help to establish facts about chemical use. Accurate data can be used to lessen concerns from consumers and trade partners relating to marketing and exports to other countries. Accurate and timely information on actual usage can also be used in the decision-making process for product registration, re-registration, and product alternatives. How are ARMS Phase 2 data disseminated? USDA's Economic Research Service publishes several reports each year on policy-relevant topics from which the supporting data come from the ARMS surveys. Staff analyses are performed for people in USDA, such as the Secretary or Chief Economist, for congressional staff, or for other federal agencies. They are not all made public, although a request may later lead to an agency report. All the other products available to the public are posted on the agency website, including the crop production practices reports, the commodity cost and returns reports. The chemical use data is also available on the NASS website through the QuickStats system. For additional information about the ARMS Phase 2 survey, you can consult your Phase 2 Interviewer's Manual, which you all should have a hard copy of and is accessible through the Purdue site in electronic form. More information can also be found at the various links noted on this slide through the ERS website, www.ers.usda.gov. You can also see links to get access to the various charts of note, the ARMS cropping practices data summary, and the ERS commodity costs and return estimates.